Hello and welcome, everybody. Today I'm here with the lovely Jacqueline Jenson, and we are doing a collaboration video because if you remember, Jacqueline was with me on the Angelic Footprints podcast. We discovered we had a lot of things in common and a great connection, so we want to share that with you today when we talk about spiritual guidance without losing groundedness, because so often people get a little bit confused about, well, am I still going to be myself and am I going to still lead the same life? Let's talk about that. Let's see where that conversation goes. Before we do that, Jacqueline, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm Jacqueline Jenson. I have been seeing and communicating with angels since I was a child. That's been an integral part of my life. But as you know, when you tap into the spiritual stuff, not everybody understands. And that's been a path that I've experienced throughout my life. I had a legal career. I was a paralegal for 20 years, and then I left that to do what I'm doing now as a medium and Akashic Records practitioner and helping people tune into their soul blueprint and connecting there.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And that's one of the things that we talked about that we have in common, that legal background. I was myself working in patent and trademark attorneys and then decided in my 30s that that just was not working with what I wanted in my life. It wasn't working in terms of what I see in terms of helping people. So, yes, that made the big cut, started my own business. And like you, went down that spiritual path and discovered it is so much more rewarding in terms of how we help clients. Let's touch on this topic about spiritual groundedness. Would you like to tell everybody what you would like to convey about what that means?
Sure. So for me, when I think of spiritual groundedness, it's the recognizing the spiritual elements of things, uh, like the angelic realm or connecting with guardians or spirit guides, acknowledging that, utilizing that, but then also saying, okay, how does this apply to my life right now? How does this apply to my everyday life? And using common sense as well, common sense and discernment when deciding and determining, okay, well, how does that apply? Because sometimes we can get insights from the angels. And sometimes that insight is just for you to mull over and think about and let it marinate for a while. And then opportunities will come for you to implement it. Whereas sometimes it's, hey, you need to implement this now. So I think
Yeah, it's
it's
absolutely.
important for that discernment and kind of filter. You could say filter, but it's like kind of test it, right? Like kind of see where does this fit within things.
I like that. And so often, especially when you've got clients who hear us talk, for example, about the spiritual world, I get it. They might be a little bit worried that, oh, we're talking only about woo woo. And in my mind, as especially for us both coming from that corporate background, you can still be very grounded in that everyday world while acknowledging that spiritual side. And one of the things that I see with a lot of people, a lot of women who come to me is they feel lost in terms of who they are and how they want to move forward in life. They know something's missing, but then how do they find that something, because they don't quite know how to define it. So then when you and I start talking about the spiritual world, it's like, oh, don't know if I want to do that because then am I going to lose myself? But I believe that you can have both. What are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree. And I do think that is a common misconception that a lot of people have is like, oh, if you go into that spiritual side of things, you're going to lose who you are. What I think really happens is it helps you to uncover who you really are. It helps you uncover who you are beneath the surface, like at that spiritual soul level, because we're more than just human beings. We're humans, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And connecting with the angels, connecting with the spiritual side is helping you to kind of tune in and uncover who you really are and being able to embody that in your day-to-day life and knowing who you really are at that soul level allows you I feel like it empowers and allows you to see, "Okay, what can I do in my day-to-day life that will honor who I really am, that will resonate with who I really am?" So I can make a huge difference with making your day-to-day decisions too.
It's such an important factor to remember, isn't it? It can absolutely help you make day to day decisions in a much more confident way when you know that you've got support there and when you're trusting your intuition because I hear myself saying this such a lot when I talk to people. We all have intuition, but in this very fast paced, forward moving life, we are so focused on just getting through each day. And before you know it, today has gone and it's already tomorrow. And it's like a week later, then it's a month later. And we're still on that hamster wheel and we're not happy. So that spiritual accessibility gives definitely people options, is what I would say. What would you also say about spiritual guidance? Like to me, and obviously to you, you spoke about having angels in your life. I've had angels in my life for as long as I can remember. What would you say is the best way people can access their spiritual side to help give them that guidance and make that connection in the first place?
Well, the first thing, and you kind of touched on this a little bit there with the hamster wheel, is first, you need to pause. You need to take a moment to actually sit down, lay down, whatever you want to do, but like to actually sit and pause. Because tuning into that spiritual side is you need to quiet your mind enough to allow that inspiration to come in and to be able to like connect to that side. Because if you are so jumbled with your to-do lists, with all your obligations, and you're sitting in that hamster wheel, it's so much more difficult to be able to tune in to receive that inspiration that's right there waiting for you. But it's like, hey, I need a spot in that brain too. So it's important to like take that moment to pause so that you can actually get it and receive it.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I know that there are people who would be listening to this saying, yeah, but I can't do that. I can't pause. I can't quieten my monkey mind. I can't take time to stop because I'm too busy to stop. What would you say to people who have that kind of a response?
Well, the first thought that came to mind, well, two thoughts came to mind when you mentioned that. I'm like, well, do you pause to go to the bathroom? Do you take a shower? Do you wash your hands? Like even just those simple moments. If you just like set intention, hey, maybe with washing the hands, it's like, hey, as I'm washing my hands, I'm going to imagine that washing the water on my hands is washing out all the chaos in my around me, in my body. And while you're drying your hands, then be like, what else is there for me to know today or to experience today? Like, it doesn't have to be this 30-minute, 50-minute thing. It can be in those day to day moments of sitting on the toilet instead of scrolling on your phone. Sit your phone down when you're showering. Think just have that moment to tune in.
Yeah. And water is such a powerful conduit for getting that connection happening. At least I know it is in my experience.
For sure.
I would add to that too. And for those of you who drive to work or even if you commute, taking the train or the bus, those are perfect moments too, because maybe
Exactly.
not when you're actually driving, but if you're stuck in traffic or if you're waiting at the red light, that's a perfect pause moment too. If you're on the train, instead of having well, you can have your earbuds in because that sort of signals to everybody else that, you're doing your own thing. But maybe turn the music off for a while and just have some quiet time to ponder and reflect. And that can definitely give you that pause time as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So for my question for you that I have too is we touched a little on the intuition part. For you, how do you define or determine when it's intuition versus all the other chatter?
I love that question, Jacqueline. That is a great question. For me, intuition comes from a space that's separate from all the other chatter. It's when I allow myself to really just listen. It's what you said about the pause, because we can get caught up in a lot of chatter. And sometimes it is as simple as putting the do not disturb sign up. If you're as you say, in the bathroom, you can have pamper time doing your face or whatever, put up the do not disturb sign so that the kids don't bother you for a little while. And then you can listen because, as you say, you're taking that pause. For me, that intuitive voice comes from a different space. For me, if I would describe it to someone, the chatter and the noise is external, whereas that spiritual aspect, that spiritual voice and the intuition is more internal, if that makes sense. That's not to say, because I'm very clairaudient, so spirit will communicate with me through um, hearing. So you could call that external, but to me, it's still internal because they're bringing that message into me and it feels like it's a part of me as opposed to coming from that outside world that is very noisy. Does that make sense? Did I describe that in a way that makes sense?
Yeah, you did. I feel like that makes total sense. And I feel like that's also part of why the importance of pausing, because I feel like one of the steps for tuning into that intuition is tuning into your body, right? Recognizing your own self with, okay, when is it your own thoughts? When is it external thoughts? When is it actual inspiration? And like you said, it's that deeper level. It's that inner part, not the surface.
Yeah.
Well, the thought that just came to mind is I'm sure some of you might be thinking, well, yeah, others can tune in. That's for other people, but that's not me. I can't do that. I'm not able to do that. I can't do that. And I think the key part with tuning in to intuition, to the spiritual, to angels is having that faith in yourself that it is for you. Like if you are even having the thought about tuning in, about wanting to connect, then that is God in the universe letting you know, yes, it's time. This is for you. So the fact that you're even having the thought and wondering, yes, it is for you and you can do that.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, how many times, though, I'm gonna say, have you had that thought in your mind of someone that perhaps you haven't heard from in a while, and lo and behold, they text you or they message you on Facebook or something, and it says that you're in alignment with, if you like, the universe or that spiritual higher dimension because you're accessing that. How many times have you had that gut instinct telling you, "Oh, I should be doing this, not this." And it's absolutely right. How many times have you followed the logic and not your gut instinct, and you've afterwards gone, "Darn, I should have gone and trusted my gut. I should have trusted." And I would say to everybody listening to this is no coincidence that you're listening to this. And everybody has that instinct, whether we call it psychic, whether we call it intuition, whether we call it our sixth sense, whether we call it our gut. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing, just packaged into a different world. And sorry, let me say that again, packaged into a different word. And ultimately, we do absolutely have it. And neuroscience is discovering more and more threads, synapses that we have in our brain that connect into this dimension. Have you seen any information about that yourself, Jacqueline?
I have. Could I describe that to you
Go
right off
for
the
it.
top of my head? No,
Yeah.
but yes, I've seen those videos. I've seen the comments and the articles about how the science is catching up to the spiritual world. You know, things that people have that's been maybe kept, you could say, kept with religion or spirituality, like, the science is catching up to that because it is scientific too. It's not just woo way out there stuff. Like, no, this is actual reality, and the world is starting to recognize that from a scientific standpoint. So if you're one of those
Yeah.
nerds that's like, "Okay, well, show me the science, show me the proof," it's out there. Go look it up.
Yeah, do a Google search. Google will find it for you, absolutely. There are studies, and I would also add, and I'm love to hear your thoughts on this, Jacqueline. Just because we are trusting our intuition and allowing more of that back into our lives, it makes good sense to have this aspect at the forefront of who we are because it does give us more confidence. It does give us the ability to make better decisions. If you're in the business world or in the corporate world, you can become a better leader because you're tuning into the dynamics of your team. You're tuning into what is needed at a particular point that isn't just, oh, it has to be this or it has to be that. There's another aspect to this as human beings that we all need. And what you touched on before, Jacqueline, was we are not just human beings having a physical existence. We're a spiritual being having a physical existence. So we've got the mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual element. And when we're tuning into those aspects, we can become better at, if you want to stay in the job that you want to do, stay in the job that you want to do, but you become better at it. What would you say to that, Jacqueline?
100% agree. I feel like it is also not just becoming better at it, but it's also allowing yourself to make that choice, because oftentimes we find ourselves in the day to day and we just feel like things are happening to us. And when we are able to tune in to who we really are, we can make that conscious choice of, hey, I am actively choosing, like, for instance, staying at this job. I'm actively choosing to stay in my current role. I'm actively choosing to give my all to up level into a higher position, or I am choosing to leave that corporate job and to start my own business. It's that moment of choice that provides that freedom internally, emotionally, and mentally.
Choice. What a great word. It does. It really opens up our choices, doesn't it? It opens up the dynamics of what is available to us. In terms of having guidance, we are obviously talking about it from the perspective of having guidance for us, that we're allowing ourselves to open up and to allow that guidance in. What would you like to add in terms of a responsibility that we have in terms of giving information to others? Just because you're receiving something, would you necessarily tell your colleague, "Hey, I really think you need to stop doing this," or not? Like, would you do that? What would you say to something like that?
I think this is a great point that you bring up, because this is, I could get on a soapbox about this. Because this is so important. One thing with tuning into the spiritual side is sometimes you will get information about other people. And I feel like the main component with that, and the main thing to keep in mind when you're getting, you could say, intuitive hits on other people, is is that for you mainly just for you to understand them better, or is it for you to actually say something? And I would say probably 90%, well, okay, maybe more 80-90% of the time, it's just for your own personal knowledge. It's spirit, the universe, just letting you know, hey, we want you to understand this so you can understand them better, and how to interact with them and how to handle whatever the situation is, rather than necessarily telling them, hey, here's what I got for you. And I feel like it's also important too, again, the agency, right? We don't need to be stepping into others' own well, you could say personal space, personal spiritual space, right? If you're not their parent, if you're not their boss, if you don't have stewardship over the person, then don't be tapping into their stuff unless they specifically ask. And I acknowledge that sometimes you're gonna have those hits even when you're not purposefully tuning in. Sometimes those will come. But taking that moment to pause and be like and asking God or universe, like, okay, so I'm receiving this. What do you want me to do with this? And
You
that's
have
the distinction part.
you've given a fabulous take on that. I mean, can you imagine getting all this information and then, you're walking around telling everybody, "Hey, I'm getting this about you. Hey, I'm getting this about you." You're probably gonna freak a whole lot of people out. So you can do it discreetly. And the way that you just said, you can tune in to see how that might be affecting a situation and how you could potentially deal with something, but it doesn't mean that you have to blurt everything out. And it gives us that opportunity to say, "Hey, I'm just getting a feeling that, you might not be okay. Are you okay?" And it
Exactly.
can just ask a question that is such a nicer way of saying, "Hey, I really feel that you're having trouble in your relationship. We don't want to do that."
Yeah. Or yeah, exactly. And people don't like that either. Like when even if they might be if even if you are in okay, let's say if it was you, and you're having a hard time with say your spouse and there's rough things going on in your life and then some random person is like, "Hey, I'm getting that you're having a hard time in your marriage and da 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 da." Yeah, that'd be crazy. And it's like it's none of your business. You're not my coach,
Yeah.
you're not my therapist. And I do think that sometimes where we get those intuitive hits about what's going on with other people, I think, like you said, is that opportunity to connect with them and be like, hey, how are things really going? And being able to kind of discern between the surface level, I'm okay, versus like what's actually happening. And I also feel like those intuitive hits can also be that provided to give you confirmation that, yes, that was an intuitive hit. Because
That
sometimes we second guess ourselves, right? And so I think that sometimes the universe gives us those to provide that confirmation that, okay, yes, you do have this gift. You are tuned in.
that is a great way of really defining what we've just been talking about, just also giving us that confirmation that, okay, yeah, I was on track with that information. But as we also talked about, it gives us the opportunity to be better colleagues, better team leaders, better ways of handling situations in the workplace, and then really, stepping it up a notch without necessarily having to tell everybody what's going on with you. So
Like,
I would absolutely say to anyone listening or watching this video, you can definitely have both. As I think you've heard Jacqueline and I say, that you can have that spiritual aspect of yourself as well as that everyday aspect, and give that a nice blend in your life rather than constantly being full pace in that forward fast world that we live in. And as Jacqueline, you said, it's a great opportunity to pause. What would you say in terms of a message to anybody who's thinking about going down the spiritual side to really own that? What kind of a message would you give to people about that?
go all in. And when I say that, that doesn't mean go all crazy and go all fanatic, but go all in this with the sense of curiosity. Go in with I am open to receiving and to being who I'm meant to be, and being willing and open to be taught, to be shown, and to be seen in a way that you're meant to. And I feel like the biggest thing is that being open and being curious.
Is that your journey? Is that how you went down the path, if you don't mind me asking?
Somewhat. I feel like it was a little bit more of the kick in the pants than necessarily, "Hey, I'm gonna go on this journey and explore." I feel like for me, it was a little bit more, yeah, a little bit more kick in the pants. Not quite forced, but sort of.
And I think that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I experienced is that spirit tap you on the shoulder ever so gently, and they say, "Oh, do you think you might like to have a look at this?"
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get some signs, or at least this is what it was for me. So I was, uh, with my law buddy, and she one day she said to me, "Dagmar, would you like to learn tarot?" And then my daughter, who was 10 years old, only 2 weeks before had said, "Mum, I'd like to have a deck of tarot cards." And I'm thinking, "My daughter's 10 years old and she wants a deck of tarot cards? Like, no, we're not gonna do that." But it was Spirit's way of tapping me on the shoulder saying, "Hey, you need to start paying attention. You need to start listening." And from there, it was a natural progression because, as you say, curiosity, I went from tarot to mediumship to Reiki to hypnotherapy to past life regression. And my curiosity just, it was like a sponge. I was loving every minute of it. And yes, you can definitely go down that path. Be curious. You don't have to do everything, but you might want to take baby steps and just see where it takes you, what really draws you in. It's like that first time you go into a mind, body, spirit kind of festival or into a metaphysical store. I love those places. I just love the energy of them. What about you, Jacqueline?
I do too. And I do feel like the key, like you said, the key part is like taking those baby steps and being curious. And you don't have to do all the things. I do find that a lot of times people who start to go into this, even with the baby steps, it's like, "Ooh, I want more. I want more," because it opens the door to possibilities and understanding that you're like, "Whoa, there's so much more to know and experience and be that there's never ending supply of knowledge and wisdom and experiences that can be had." And again, bring back that groundedness part of, but also keeping in mind and like tuning in, like, okay, but what is for me right now? What is it that I'm meant to do, or am I being called or guided to do right now in this moment? And one of the key things, like, I don't know about for you, and maybe you can touch on this too, but when I was leaving the legal career and going into doing my own business, that big transition that led to me learning about the Akashic records and doing what I do now, part of that journey required me to let go of what I was doing, not just with my career, but also with my own personal spiritual beliefs and religion and stuff, and kind of reshaping and reformatting what I thought I knew and being open to more possibilities, being willing to not fully like let go and say, "Oh, okay, that's in the past. I don't believe any of that anymore," but just being open to the possibility that I didn't know it all, that what I had been taught, maybe that was only part of the story, and maybe there's more story to be had.
That is so refreshing. It's so true, though. It absolutely is true. We only get told a certain amount and we grow up with certain ideas, whether it's because of our parents, our culture, our upbringing. Maybe it is our religious teachers and the religious teachings that we get along the way. So, going down this journey is about, if you like, recalibrating. I'm not saying that you have to get rid of every idea that you've ever
Exactly.
been taught, but just have a think about how the new you fits in with where you wanna go and where you want to be and where that old you becomes. How does that transition phase happen, from the old you to the new you? As you say, it's about curiosity, it's about transition, it's about being open to something new, if you like, for want of a better description. And you don't have to leave everything old behind. You might
Okay.
find that that naturally happens as the new you evolves. And that's okay because, in a lot of ways, your subconscious was taking you there. That's my opinion. What I would say, your soul was saying, this is what I need for where I'm at this point in my life. What would you say to that?
I agree with that. And just like you point out, we don't necessarily have to get rid of everything that we've ever been taught. We don't have to throw it all away or say, "Oh, well, that was not true," or whatever. But those were all part of your journey in forming who you are now, like those different versions of you. And as you continue to grow and learn and expand and evolve, there's parts that from your childhood, your upbringing, your culture, there are those parts that are going to be found in the thread of your soul. That there's a reason why you grew up that way. There's a reason why you're a part of that religion or that culture, because that's part of what formed who you are now. And as you evolve, there's still parts of that that you can definitely carry through. And I feel like the biggest part with the becoming the new you, well, becoming the new you, but like the as you evolve and some would say up level, uh, but in all reality, it's just refining who you are. You're just becoming the better version of yourself and utilizing the wisdom, the knowledge, the experiences that God and the universe provides for you and integrating that. And not just, okay, I have this experience or I'm learning these things, but comes back to that choice again. Okay, so now I know this. Now what am I going to do about it? Am I going to take that as truth for me and I'm actually going to act on it? Or is it, that doesn't really sit with me right now. Maybe that will sit with me later. Maybe there's something else that I need to learn or experience first before that thing will make more sense to where I can embody that.
Yeah, and it comes back to the pause, doesn't it? Because ultimately, this conversation is set as a point for you to have a think about what it is ultimately that you want. There's nothing here to say that you have to make a decision on anything right now. Maybe you listening to this conversation is a catalyst for that pause to take you on the next stage of your journey. And that can be so empowering. And as you say, Jacqueline, all the experiences that we have had before make us who we are today. Don't ever think about anything in the past having been a mistake. Don't think about it as, oh, I mucked up all of this stuff. Oh, I was such a bad person, or I did this wrong or that wrong. No, we are here to learn and grow. Our spiritual side wants us to grow. And unfortunately, and I'm the first one to say, hey, I've had some of those really, really challenging times and I've made some doozies of mistakes. Does that mean that they were mistakes forever? No, they're just part of the journey of who I am today. And it's given me great learning. And remember, everything that you've done makes you also a teacher for somebody else. What would you say to that, Jacqueline?
Exactly. Spot on. Spot on.
Well, to round it up, what would you like to say to finish up and maybe tell people how they can get in touch with you if they want to do any work with you?
Yeah. So for wrapping up, I just want to say and emphasize again like, you are hearing this for a reason. Everything that comes into your awareness comes to you for a reason. And if you don't know what that reason is, that's okay. But just notice and be aware and allow yourself to be curious and to take steps forward and to be open to the next thing that universe and God want you to experience and to learn. And don't beat yourself up about it. There's no shame, no guilt. You can't get it wrong. You're living. You're living life and learning, and that's okay. And for those who want to get in touch with me, you can connect with me on Facebook or Instagram, Jacqueline Jenson. And also, you can connect with me to work further with me on my website, jacquelinejenson.com. That's JACQUELINEJENSON.com.
I will be sure to have all of your links on the webpage on YouTube, as well as I want to say thank you for that beautiful message. It was such a lovely way of finishing up our discussion and giving everybody something to think about before they might look at, well, what are my next steps? If you want to get in touch with me, Dagmar Bryant, I have a free school group, and that's SKOOOL. It's connecting with your angels. There is a free course on how you can connect with your angels. Join me in my school group. If you're ready to have a deeper conversation, check out my website, angelic-footprints.com. I'd absolutely love to hear from you. In the meantime, it's been such a pleasure, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing this discussion. I hope this has been valuable to you who are listening to this. If you liked it, please share it with people who you know, and they can get the benefits out of it as well. Once again, thank you, everybody, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration.